Ray, a John Maxwell certified leadership coach. Welcome to Life, Love, and Leadership, where we discuss everything pertaining to life, love, and leadership. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to Life, Love, and Leadership, the podcast brought to you by the Real Leadership Company, and I'm Tom Ray. And joining with me today on the podcast is Dr. Mary Welsh from Susie Kids. And we're so excited to have you on today. Hi, Dr. Mary.
Hi, everyone. It's good to be here.
Yes, and we have some similarities in common, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. But before we kick off the show, I always do, an AOG, an attitude of gratitude. And for me today, I am thankful for books. Yeah, I'm thankful for books where I can gain some knowledge and learn some things. I've come to discover that there's a lot of people that don't like to read. And it's funny, I was in the library just the other day and saw countless books on the shelves, but not very many people were there at the library. And I think people, when they get done with school or college, they think, I'm done with learning. Now it's time to see the world. And so there's so much more to learn with books. So I'm thankful today for books. Dr. Mary, what are you thankful for today?
Yeah, I can relate to what you said. I had, when I graduated, I went out and bought 10 trash novels just so I could just sit down and just read a book, right? Without having to take any notes. What am I grateful for? It's meeting people. I
Mm,
love to talk and I love to meet new people. Your story is because we're made up of stories, right? And so it's really important that we, take that time to find out who other people are, just like we found the commonalities when we were talking, right? So that's what I'm grateful
yes.
for.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you for that, Dr. Mary. And for anybody out there, what is your attitude of gratitude? What are you thankful for today? Let us know. Drop me a line at tom@realleadershipcompany.com. Love to hear more about it. Please subscribe and tell other people about this. Share this content with others, especially this story about Dr. Mary and Susie Kids. So, as I said, joining with me today is Dr. Mary Welsh. She is someone that her and I just both connected on a social media platform. And maybe she can tell you a little more about that. But we just connected and found that we had a lot of things that just resonated with one another. And I was just very attracted to what she's doing and how she's connecting with people and making a difference in their lives. And she's experienced some tragedy along the way. And I'm going to let her tell you some of that story as we move about. But sit down and tune in. And if you have to, pull over and let's buckle in for a great podcast today with Dr. Mary Welsh. Dr. Mary Welsh, why don't you explain and maybe tell people a little bit about yourself and how you're doing today?
So, like this whole story, like I said a moment ago, and my story, my recent story started a few years back. Unfortunately, I had a daughter that passed away, and her name was Susie.
Mm,
And we started a nonprofit in her honor called Susie Kids. But it took
mm,
us a little bit of time to get there. We had to figure out how we were going to deal with that loss and how to do it positively and make something good of it. And so that's the story that I'm going to share with you today. And know that my daughter Susie is, my little shining angel that's watching for both of us, all of us today.
that's
Yeah.
wonderful. Wonderful. Well, really quick, give us just a little snapshot of what Susie Kids is about right now. We can dive into that a little more in a minute, but and I want to get back to Susie in just a moment too. But just give us a little snapshot of what Susie Kids is all about.
Susie always wanted to have kids. wasn't able to. She passed when she was 31. So we created Susie Q's Kids, and we create comfort bags for kids that are in hospitals, shelters, foster care, and those that are grieving the loss of a loved one. So I always say Susie is looking on over us from her perch above and inspiring in the lives of all these children that we're helping in her honor. And we just want to brighten and inspire the life of another child through these comfort bags.
That's wonderful. Can you give us one moment where you touched a life through doing this? You probably have countless, but just one that you can share with the audience today.
So our family had been impacted by suicide in the past, and still continues to. There's a lot of the mental health of our industry right now. Our community is high, and we always gave back by working at the suicide walks, and we manned the children's tent. And so for the last few years, we set up our Susie Q tent there as well, and I talked about positivity at these events. And we did 4 in the fall. And after the events were over, I had 4 people reach out to me and tell me that I saved their life.
Mm,
So I listened, I touched them somehow, my message touched them and related to them. So I made that difference, and was honored in January. We were honored by the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. They made us
mm,
their Community Partner of the Year. So
wow.
that's just one small example of impact, right?
Yes, absolutely. That's wonderful. And we'd love to hear more about that. And I'm sure people are even turning up their volume quite a bit right now and tuning in to listen to what you have to say. And so let's talk about Susie just a little longer. Tell us who Susie was.
Well, Susie, she was just a doll. I got a picture of her here. So this is my Susie. So you know who I'm talking about. Um, she was 31 when she passed, but she had spent most of her adult life in and out of the hospital. But when
Mm,
she was a baby, she smiled. When she was a kid, she smiled. When she was sick, she smiled. She smiled all the time. And so she was just that bright sunshine in everybody's life. And she always looked for the positive in everybody. And we planned a cruise 2 months, 2 years before she passed, and she wanted to go on a cruise, and we called it a get well cruise. She was sick. I didn't know if she'd get on there or not, but she got on the boat, and we did one excursion. And so this is my favorite story of Susie. She's on a jet ski, and she's flying across the water, and her hair's blowing. I can hear that glorious laughter. I can see that beautiful smile, and she didn't know 2 speeds, on and full throttle. I don't think she slowed down coming into the dock. That was just her. She was just precious. She really was precious. Yeah.
that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So what was her heart? What did she like to do? What things did she like to do?
She had a friend when she was little, and she thought it was awful that she was in foster care and that she went from house to house, followed her to 5 houses, and all she had was a garbage bag full of things, of her
Mm,
clothes. She didn't have any toys or anything, just a few clothes. And she thought that we were the richest, even though we weren't. But she thought we were so rich because we had family around us. And Susie would she would do a bake sale. She would go and she'd um, do a collection if somebody had a fire, or if they, had something happen. She would make sure that she was helpful. So she did that from a little kid, all the way through her life. At the end, she was a medical assistant, so she wanted to help people. That was her
mm.
role in life that she wanted, and she was really good at it. She was really
That's
good at it.
wonderful. That's wonderful. So, 2 weeks ago, Dr. Mary and I got to sit down together and talk, and we discovered some similarities in our lives. And she lost her Susie, and in 2015, I lost my Susie, my sister Susan. She was killed in a hit and run accident while riding her bicycle across the state of Michigan to raise funds for the Hope Water Project that provides clean water wells in Kenya, Africa. And and the more we talked, Dr. Mary and I, we found some more similarities. My sister was also in the medical field and worked as a nurse. And, and then I got to discover that your mom her name is Shirley. Is that correct? And
Yep.
my other sister's name is Shirley. And so there's a lot of similarities there and some others that I forget at the moment. But it's a wonderful thing when we're able to connect and relate on so many different levels and how we can connect and also bring comfort to one another because we've kind of experienced similar things in our lives and it's difficult when we're dealing with loss. I was just talking to a woman just on Tuesday who was just suffering the loss of a close friend, someone who was a part of the business group, network group that she was with, but he had become more of a close friend to her, and so she's still dealing with the impact of that. And we're losing people. America, the world has lost people quite a bit as of late, and it's affected us. And we're trying to deal with this part of life, and we don't like to talk about it, but it's important that we do and we process it well. On a side note, if I can, I want to just share with everyone. There's a program called Grief Share. Grief Share. You can go to griefshare.org. They have meetings happening all over the United States, at different and various places. If you're struggling with grief and you need to talk to someone or be a part of a group, I totally recommend Grief Share. I did check that out after my sister was killed back in 2015. And so I encourage you to check that out. Again, griefshare.org. That was a bonus. I didn't plan on sharing that, but that's for you today. So, Dr. Mary, let's share a little bit in regards to perhaps loss or the mental health that's going on, the pandemic, I guess, if you will, of mental health that's been happening. But we've kind of seen that on the rise, especially with the quarantining and all of that stuff. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, the numbers are just, rising in their highest for our children. Our children that are in the 10 to 12, 13-year-old bracket and 14 to 19. It's just amazing. And we have to open up that dialogue with them and let them know that there's, a safe space, there's safe people. It's okay to have these different emotions that we have. um, Kids today are they have a lot of stress on them. They have a lot of stress from home life and school life, and social media plays a big part of it. And it's a lot easier to bully somebody today than it was, years ago. It used to be your just small sphere of people. Now it's, and it grows viral, with the social media. And so it's really just, being more aware. And that's why I've always been involved with, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, for example, and the different things that we do. Um, you mentioned Grief Share. I do grief work with the Bereaved Parents of USA. I'm a board member for the Macomb chapter and have spoke on a national level for them and for Compassionate Friends. And more locally here in Northville, the Hope Center for Grief Support as well. So there's lots of resources out there that people can take advantage of, in person and virtual. So, it's finding that place where you can go. It's just so important just to open up. For me, I always looked at the world as being the cup half full. The cup always was half full. I was always
Mm-hmm.
looking for that positive side. And when we're grieving or we're having challenges in life, and grief isn't just the loss of a loved one. Grief can be the loss of a pet. It could be the
Yeah,
loss of
yeah.
a home, the loss of a job. for kids not being able to go into school to see their friends, their normal routine, or our loved ones in nursing homes and rehab places that weren't able to see our family members. It was just, it's rampant right now. We're all grieving in some aspect in our life, right? And so how do
Hmm.
we find that? How do we find that perspective to look for the positive in it as opposed to the negative? Um, if you told me 5 years ago, it'll be 5 years in June, that my Susie passed, that I would, one, talk about it with people, I would have said no. Two, that I would do it on the level that I am, I'd say no. I to me, that would have been like really personal, and there was no way that I could open up and share.
Hmm.
But I found that my mental health is better if I can talk about Susie and talk with others and help them bring up their thoughts and share their thoughts. So, um, if I help one person a day, it's a good day. And I help myself. So I know I'm going to have a good day every day, because at some point in the day, I'm going to get out of my fog if I'm in it and have a good day, because Susie had a good day even when she wasn't feeling good.
Mm, that's wonderful. It's something you shared with me, and I just want to take a second to do this. When we talked last, you talked about two things that
Mhm.
people need to do. Do you remember that? Can you share
I
with us what
do.
those two
I
things are?
do.
Let's take the moment to do that right now.
So I wrote a grief book, and I also wrote a journal that goes with it. In my journal, um, and my books, I talk about the four aspects of positive reflection. But in the journal, I asked two questions. What did you do for yourself? And what did you do for someone else?
Mm,
And if you can't answer both questions, you're too centered on yourself or you're too centered on helping everybody else. And we need to have a balance. I always tell everybody, give yourself a gut check. And if it's not balanced, then take a walk to the neighbors if you need to do something, or pick up the phone. Or if it's for yourself, if you're helping everybody else, lock yourself in the bathroom, sing a song, go for a walk, whatever it is, do something for yourself, right? Because we can't maintain our own sanity, our own mental health, if we're not balanced.
that's wonderful. It's taking care of ourselves, kind of like being on the airplane. If something happens on the airplane, you put the oxygen on yourself, and then you help other people. And that's the concept around that. And thank you for that. That's so powerful. So, wow, let's let's talk about Dr. Mary. You mentioned that you've written some books. So why don't you share with us that and tell us a little more about Dr. Mary and what she does?
I have a doctorate in executive leadership. I'm not a medical doctor, a doctorate in executive leadership. I had my own consulting business. I helped businesses with strategy and HR for many years. I'm a university professor, teach on a college level. When Susie passed, uh, there's this big chasm. I didn't know what to do with my life. I think some things didn't seem as important as other times, right? And so I actually closed my consulting business, and I worked on my own personal mental health as well as my family and friends. And my therapist said I needed to share my story because she had never met anyone like me. And I said, "Oh, I'm certifiably crazy." And she laughed. And she said, "No, you have a powerful message you need to share."
Absolutely.
So I wrote my book. It's about my grief journey. And if you look closely in the background there, you'll see my daughter Susie with her arms outstretched, standing on the
Wow.
beach. And that's a good memory. And so I incorporated that in. But I, I realized when I was grieving that cup half full, how was I going to approach life? And so there's four aspects to positive reflection that I wove throughout all of my books. So this is the journal that I did. that I talked about a moment ago. And then
What's that called?
Journey into the Looking Glass, and it's the 4 aspects of positive reflection.
Nice.
And in those books, I talk about the four aspects of positive reflection. Really, the first one we need to remember. So when someone passes away, we have a habit of putting them up on this pedestal. None of us deserve to be on the pedestal because we're all human. So at some point we fall and we get back up, right? And so to remember our loved one is really important, to remember the good, the bad, and the indifferent. And that's what made all of our relationships be what they are. The second one is to reflect on that relationship. So I'm going to talk about um, the reflection being from my loss of Susie, but you can reflect on whatever challenge you're going through as I'm talking, okay? So it may
Mhm.
be the loss of a loved one, a pet, a circumstance that you're having. So for Susie, what impact did she have on me? And so lots of stories come to mind, lots of things. What impact did I have on her? And she gave me one of her favorite things that she said to me one time was, I'm your mini me, mom. I want to be just like you. I want to smile all the time. I want to make a difference. I want to make other people feel loved and welcome. And I want to be that personality that everybody comes to because they just enjoy you. And she succeeded. She surpassed
Mhm.
me. She put me on this pedestal, and I think she's up here, right?
Yeah.
Um, so, she had a significant impact. You ask who I was. I had my consulting business and did it virtual so that I could be at the hospital. I teach online so I could be at the hospital. So I was
Mhm.
there through all the good and bad. And so when she passed, there really kind of was a chasm of loss there. Um, and then the third one is to recreate. And when I say recreate, a lot of people hear, oh, that's your new normal. This is your new normal. And it kind of is, but it can be coined a little differently because it's what you make of it. And it's not, we're all different. We're different from when we graduate high school to when we graduate college to when we get married. Every life milestone makes us different, as
That's
does,
right.
right? And so when you look at it that way, it's not as overbearing as just negative loss, right? And so when I talk about recreate, it's finding new ways to look at life a little different. And so I always use this example. If you took your hand and you put it up by the side of your head and you wove it around, this can be all the thoughts in your head over here. And it's like, my worst thought is my what if. What if I'd argued with the doctor? My Susie would still be here, right? Well, on this side of my brain, all the thoughts are over here. So I got all the stuff we all do every day, all the stuff
Mhm.
warring over here. It's saying, oh, come on, Mary, you know better. How many doctors did you go to? Didn't you fire doctor? Didn't if the nurse looked at her the wrong way, didn't you take her off her shift? Didn't you? And I'd say, yeah. But if I stay up here in all this noise, I can be really depressed.
Mhm.
And so I have to figure out how to get away from that noise because I always say if you take your hands and throw it at your feet, that's the rabbit hole of despair. And you really don't want to go there because you can
Mm-mm.
go there for a minute, you can go there for an hour, there for a day. A lot of people live there and it's not a nice place. There's
No.
no there's no sunshine, there's no brightness, there's no positivity. So I always tell people take their hand and put their favorite person. So look at your hand. I told you the story about my trip on the jet ski with Susie, and that makes me smile every time I think of it.
Yeah.
I put it in my hand, and I challenge each of you to put that story in your hand. And I said, now I want you to take your hand and put it up by the side of your head like you're waving at somebody. I can see my hand because I'm looking in the camera, but I really can't see my hand. You can't see your hand. You can see that it's over there and that it's in your peripheral. It's a symbol. Susie or whoever you put in your hand is always with you. They're right
Mm,
there.
mm,
But if I'm having a really, really bad day and all this is going on, and instead of going down to that rabbit hole of despair, if I just turn my head a little bit and my hand, I'm looking right into Susie's smiling face.
mm,
And she's saying, you got this, Mom. Come on, you got it. You got it. I can't help but smile. It flipped my perspective a little,
yeah.
right? Um, and then the fourth one. So before I do that, did you have a good picture in your hand?
Oh yeah, yeah. Sure
Yeah.
did.
Okay. All right. So the fourth one is to relate, and it's really got three prongs to it. And we talked about mental health here a little bit ago. We talked about the journal. It's really about one, taking care of yourself. So that's
Hmm.
why that question was so important. What did you do for yourself, right? The second one is what did we do to help somebody else, which was the second question in my journal. For me, it's easy being here today and talking to you and telling my story. If you walk away with even just that sunshine in your hand, it's a good day. If there was some other morsel that you took away from our talk today and it made you think or change your perspective in some way, even if it was just for that minute, it's a good day. And so we have to help other people. And then the third one is we have to give back in the community. And that's where I have Susie Q bags. So they have, this is our nonprofit, and we give these bags to kids that are in hospitals and shelters and foster care, those that are grieving the loss of a loved one. They get a soft, cuddly
Oh,
panda bear. I mean, they just melt. These kids, they just grab them and they just melt around them. And then I
nice.
always give a nice warm blanket so that they can cuddle and know that, they're thinking of their loved one, or maybe it takes the pain
Mm,
away if they're in the hospital, or if they've been taken from their home or something, if they're put in a shelter or foster care. Maybe it brightens their day a little bit, just a
mm,
little bit, so then it's a good day, right? Anytime we
that's right.
brighten, it's a good day.
That's right. That's wonderful. So, you go ahead. Yeah, share us that
Yeah.
one.
So this is my children's book. So I wrote about all of the questions my grandchildren asked me. Um, and it was real important that they were able to find the answers. So there's five of them, five grandchildren, all different ages. Angel Susie narrates the book and she answers it in five different perspectives. And I call it a story starter. It's just concepts for you as the adult to read through and connect your children with the person that they're missing, and to regenerate and weave that story forward so that that memory and that tradition that they had never goes away. So this book goes into all of my grief bags. And then if I was going to give kids a coloring book, I decided I would create my own. Here's Angel Susie. It's all about good characteristics to model and positive sayings. So if they're coloring, I just wanted them to think just a little more positively than, just a regular color. And so these go into all of my bags. So that was my contribution to kind of help kids to
Mm,
think a little more positive.
that's wonderful. So awesome, and thank you for that today. And you shared that those two things once again was to help yourself and then do something to make a difference in the life of others. And
Yep.
so, I think for themselves, for a person who may be struggling with grief or whatever the case may be, to pick up your book, so they can get that for themselves, and then to help other people is to make a difference, to with Susie Q's kids, and to perhaps send a donation or something of that kind. So tell me that. What other ways can people help, and how can they donate and contact you for further information?
Sure. So our website is susieqskids.org. So it's SUSIEQ with an S, KIDS.org. So you can go on there. There's links to the books. There's links to donate. There's a contact form on there. So if you have an idea or a thought, we have collection boxes that we'll put into different businesses. So you can have a drive with your employees or your customers to collect crayons or to collect coloring books or shampoo or whatever, or however you want to, donate. We also do stuffing events. So we'll advertise our stuffing events. That'll be people can come out and volunteer then and help us actually put the bags together. All of our bags go to other nonprofits. So I always tell people it's like a win-win, because they go to, their established program. So I don't need to go out and search for children or insert myself into their lives at all. And it's, and of course, my phone number and email are on my website, so they can always reach me. But it's drmary at susieqskids.org is my email. So any way you can make a difference in the life of somebody, an adult or a child or yourself, is really important. So my book is really done in small segments. It's only 2 or 3 page sections, because I always say we have grief fog. It just comes over. You can't process anything. You can't remember anything. And so there's just a couple of questions just to make you stop and think, and you can write your notes down and you can always come back to it. So whatever your technique is, it's really important. They have a list, and it's their emergency list. And when you are up here and all this noise is just like won't stop, you can't get past. You dial the first number on the list, and if it's busy, you hang up and dial the second number, and you do it until you get one of your people on your phone, and then just let them know they're on that list. So if they get it, they know they have to take 5 or 10 minutes and just listen or tell you a funny story. So I have a funny one my brother had. He was walking in from the backyard with a whole plate of food on his platter, and somebody shut the door wall while he was talking, and he walked right into the door wall, and the food came up and went all over
Oh
him.
no.
And here's little Susie laying on the couch, not feeling good. And she erupted in laughter. And he goes, "You didn't see that?" And she goes, "Yes, I did." And for years, she would just start laughing out of the clear blue. And she'd think, "Uncle Jim in the door wall." I think there's a door wall in heaven waiting for him to show up, actually. And he happened to get the call one day. I was calling my sister-in-law. He answered. He started asking me all the normal, "Did you see the doctor? Did you da da da?" I'm like, "Tell me a story." And he told me the door wall story. I started laughing, and all this calmed down, right? And so that storytelling can make all this settle. So make sure you have your list for everybody anytime. And so whenever you're having a troubled moment, call that list and say, "Hey, just tell me a story."
That's wonderful.
Change your mind,
That's
change your
wonderful.
perspective.
Yeah, that's a powerful thing. It's kind of like that alarm switch on the wall that says, "In case of a fire, break glass," and pull the alarm, and and do some fire drills, right? And I encourage people in other talks that I've done about doing forgiveness drills, right? Forgiving those and forgiving before you have a need to forgive, and so practice that, get in position of that, and know what you're going to do in case you need to forgive someone. So prepare your heart for that. And in the same way, like this, when you know that you're going to be having some down times and maybe some struggle with anxiety or depression, that you have those folks that you've already called and connected with and just said, hey, when I call you and say, I need a joke right now, or I just need somebody to listen and hear me puke all over you for just a moment, you know, uh, be there for me, you know, and have that set up and arranged ahead of time. And I think that's a brilliant idea to do that and help people. Dr. Mary, this has been wonderful. And I want to let everybody know we're going to put all of her links and things in the description of this podcast or this video cast also. And we invite you to go and check out susieqskids.org. That's SUSIEQ, the letter, an S, KIDS, right? susieqskids.org or drmarywelsh.com. And you can also reach her at drmary@susieqskids.org. Is that right?
That's true. Yep.
All right. And we'll post all of that in the description. Dr. Mary, it has been a pleasure having you today. Is there anything else you'd like to say as we wrap up this podcast?
Just when you get together with people, share your stories. We learn from those sharing stories. So every one of us has, I have a different story about you than somebody else is going to have. We shared Susie, we shared Shirley's, so there's commonalities, and there's commonalities in all of our stories. But if I hadn't talked to you, I wouldn't have known that story, right? And so a lot of times we go to a funeral, for example, and you'll have work associates telling stories, and you'll have campers telling stories, different lifetimes and different perspectives. And so it's real important when someone passes that you share those stories, because it gives them a glimmer of hope and healing, and that their loved one's life meant something, and it was important and and it gives that person that's grieving a different outlook. So stories are real important. Just share the stories. Here's my girl. She's going to say goodbye. Yep. So she's the one that started my
beautiful girl. She's beautiful. And we're so thankful that you were able to reach that one, being yourself, and that you were able to dig out of that hole of despair, or that rabbit hole, as you talked about a little while ago, and that you are coming out and able to bring sunshine to the lives of others who are going through a similar situation. And so, hey, if you need somebody to talk to, she's available. We're available. You can reach me at tom@realleadershipcompany.com. And her at Dr. Mary at susieqskids.org. But just reach out to us. We want to be a blessing to you in somehow, some way. And Dr. Mary, you can also partner with other organizations or something. Is that something you do?
Yeah, so we have a lot of partnerships because we give our bags to other organizations, so other nonprofits. So we partner with them, and we also partner with the businesses with our donation box drives and sponsorships and bag stuffing events. So, just reach out to me. We're always looking to ways to collaborate and, find new things and ways to make a difference.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Mary, for being a part of this podcast. And we certainly wish you all the best. And we'll be praying for your organization as well, that you continue to touch lives and bring that sunshine and encouragement to other people. Because I know when you do, that you get that in return, right? Because that you've helped make a difference in someone's life. And you've also impacted me and made a difference in my life today as well. I appreciate your story and being vulnerable to tell us, kind of the behind the scenes and what's going on with your life and how you've struggled and how you've also just found your ray of sunshine. And thank you for sharing Susie with us. and for sharing your heart with us today. And we thank you all for joining us today, and we look forward to you joining us again next time. Please subscribe and tell other people about this. Share this content with others, especially this story about Dr. Mary and Susie Q's kids. And thank you for joining us on Life, Love, and Leadership.